Hello fellow investors and welcome to Sylle Invest, where we bring knowledge to investing. What is Newlox Gold's operational timeline? Currently, they do not have one, but today I will present my operational timeline and explain the details behind it. But first of all, who are Newlox Gold Ventures? Newlox Gold is an ESG gold producer that collaborates with artisanal miners. They do no gold exploration, which is expensive and risky. They extract 90% of the gold, whereas artisanal mining practices are at best 40%. They do environmental remediation by removing mercury from the tailings and by preventing mercury from being used in the first place. And they also have facilities that are low cost, high margin and built quickly. So today I'm going to focus on four main areas for this operational timeline. It's going to be the OAR, Plant 1, Plant 2 and the Brazil expansion. Out of all these, OAR is by far the trickiest to provide any timelines for. Newlox has not provided any guidance on how long each step is going to take, but I've done my best in providing a realistic and achievable timeline. So starting with OAR, we see that we are currently doing in-field testing, and it started just a few days ago. And the next step after that would be to have the in-field testing finished and the results analyzed. And this I expect to happen somewhere in Q2 and Q3. It's going to be basically the end of Q2 and somewhere in Q3. I would say that's the most likely scenario. That way they have between like 3 and 7 months to do the testing and analyze the results, which I think is achievable. Might take a little longer. It depends on how much testing they plan to do. But that's my take on it. And moving to the next step, after they have finished the in-field testing and analyzed the results, they're going to start the testing in production. And I expect the testing in production to start either directly after the results has been analyzed from the in-field testing or slightly afterwards. That will mean that they will start their testing in production around Q3 or Q4 this year. But this also depends on the results on the in-field testing. If the result is good, I think they will proceed to the testing in production. But if the results come in bad or they're having some kind of issue, they might extend that period to get their things working properly, as I don't see them doing any in-production testing on something that doesn't, work as they intend it to do. And testing in production when it's finished and, the results are analyzed, it's hard to put a timeline on this. It depends on how long they're going to do the R&D here and how the results come in. So I'm going to say 2023. It's very vague, but I think the vagueness, it's very accurate for how inaccurate we can make such a prediction. So some people want this earlier, but personally I do not think we're going to be finished with the production testing until 2023, so between 1 and 2 years in the future. Moving on to Plant 1. Well, we are currently waiting for reagents or scaling because it's unknown if reagents have arrived. And the next step would be to get 50 ton per day throughput with high gold yield. They have mentioned earlier that they have reached 50 ton per day throughput, but the gold yield became very, very low. So they are waiting for reagents to get the gold yield up again. So I would say February to April. The company appears to be very, very confident that as soon as they get reagents, they will reach 50 ton per day, almost like instantly. But I'd like to have some wiggle room, like some uncertainty in there. So I'm going to say February to April. I expect the reagents to be here in February or March. If it's later than that, then I'll be very disappointed. And even if they say that they also are very confident at reaching 50 tons per day, which is great to hear, I still add some extra leeway there to be on the safe side. So as long as they achieve this, like at latest April, I would say that's fine in my operational timeline. Like my timeline is quite conservative, I'd say, but you can make that decision on your own because I outline everything here. And if there's anything you don't agree on, you can adjust it based on what you think. And moving on from 50 tons per day, we reach 60 tons per day. I'm basically doing increments here, you know, 50, 60, 70, and 80. And even if they themselves claim that they should be able to ramp up in like 6 months in total, that's mean like as soon as the testing is done, they ramp up to full scale in 6 months. This is like their first facility. I would say it's going to take extra time. So every 10-ton increment, I say, is going to take 2 months. So 60 ton per day, I say, would be finished in May, June. 70 ton per day in July, August. And according to this timeline, I'd say that we reach full scale of plant 1 in September, October this year. That's perhaps later than people expect. And to be honest, most of the things here in my operational timeline is going to be later than people expect. I don't want to give you the best case scenario or good case scenario. I'm going to give you a bad scenario, but quite bad, I'd say, because this is the timeline I believe in. This is the timeline I work with. I invest in this company based on this timeline and not on some rainbow timeline that someone else believes is going to happen. So this is like my honest opinions, and you can make what you want of it. So moving on to Plan 2. They're currently waiting for equipment or installing the equipment, as we do not know yet if the equipment has arrived. Ryan mentioned, though, that they will have a news release. We hinted that there will be a news release when the equipment has been installed. Now, when the equipment will arrive, I believe it's going to happen here in like late February or somewhere in March. But I'm also, fully understandable that there might be more delays here. It's not an easy environment to navigate in. And having the equipment installed should take quite a short amount of time. But to be on the safe side, I say it should take a month to install this equipment. So by March and April, I believe it will be installed. And after that, the commissioning should also start and be finished. The commissioning, if you ask Newlox, should take a few weeks. So I estimate it will take around a month. As I mentioned, I like to have this little safety distance too, because things happen. And it's their first plant. I guess this is the second plant. But until they have had a few plants in production, I expect there to be some, things that they do not expect, and that their timelines will not be completely met. That's not uncommon. So one should have these extra months added just to be on the, safe side, if you can call it that. So yeah, April, May, that's when I think the commissioning is going to be finished. And then we're going to have some testing, and the testing, according to Ryan, should take between a few weeks and around a month. So I estimate it will take around a month. I don't like the short estimates. I always go with the upper ones. So in May or June, I'd say the testing is finished and we start the ramp up. And then that leads us to the question, when will the ramp up be finished? They say it takes 6 months. So I say it will take 9 months. And that gives me the estimate that in Q1 2023, the ramp up will be finished and plant 2 will be running at 150 tons per day throughput with high gold yield. And moving on to the Brazil expansion, they are currently finalizing the agreement. And when that will be done, that's hard to say. It depends, when the parties will agree. And some say a few months. It might be like any day, a few weeks, a few months. It's really hard to tell. And Newlox have only said that it will be done like this year. Like they basically they guarantee that it's going to be done this year. So I'm going to say Q1 to Q3. If it happens in Q3, I would say I would be a little surprised, but I like having some surprise in my timeline. And if it gets signed in that period, I would say the construction of Plant 3 should start around Q3 this year or Q1 next year, which is also quite a big space. But it's because this is a very uncertain thing, because even if the agreement is signed, do they have the permits? Can they start construction instantly? We don't know. And therefore I have to add like a lot of wiggle room. I'd rather be safe than sorry. So we'll see. I look forward to when it gets signed. I look forward to the details. I look forward to when they announce that the Plan 3 will be started, because and also when they say that the construction has started. That's a big thing for me. And then let's say that the construction starts at this place. Like, when will the construction, commissioning and testing be finished? I'd say Q1 to Q3 2023. So this is basically a little more than 1 year from now. And that's, as I would say, I think that's later than most would have expected. And it's a lot later than the company has said themselves. But yeah, this is what I believe is going to happen. And we'll see. Future will tell. Perhaps I'm right, perhaps I'm wrong. And now, looking at this operational timeline, you need to ask yourself, is this operational timeline reasonable? Would I personally do any changes? As I mentioned, this is my operational timeline that I feel is realistic and achievable. But there is, of course, no guarantee that reality will look anything like this. And I did add some uncertainties and wiggle room in there. So if Newlox execute well, they should outperform this operational timeline. But at the same time, if they underperform, which has been in the past as of recent, then reality could be worse than this. So we have to be prepared for all scenarios, better, same, or worse. It's as I've mentioned a few times, it's a rough world of life, a world to live in right now, when estimates and time plans is really hard to make with supply chain issues, etc. And I'm going to go to something that you perhaps did not expect. Let's briefly talk about price target for end of year 2023. I will give you my bear case, my base case, and my bull case. But before that, let's read the important disclaimer. So the price targets I'm going to show here, they are based on my operational timeline. There is no guarantee that the timeline is accurate, and reality can be better or worse. Or, perhaps it is right, who knows? And seriously, really, Newlox has had many delays. And you should be prepared that there might be more. There's always a risk in everything. And this is no exception. So let's see what the differences are between the price targets. I have 3 factors that differ between these. It's the average gold price, it's the OAR, and it's the PE, the price to earnings ratio. The PE is always a hot topic, and finding the right balance is hard. PE is based on what type of business it is. The gross margin, the growth, the ESG rating, and a lot more. There are sources that show a typical PE ratio of 28.8 for non-ESG gold producers in Canada. Newlox might have huge margins and a great ESG profile, but their lack of execution and this early stage, it might decrease the PE, as the company can come across as a less stable and safe investment, and I can understand that. And their PE, it should be higher in the future, but a baseline of 20 for the end of year 2023 seems like a fair value. So let's look at the price targets for the bear base and the bull case. Okay, so this might look very green and very big. So the bear case, just going to go back and mention it, the bear base and bull, the gold price is going to be higher the more bullish we get. And the bull case will count the OAR field results, which the others will not. And the bull case has a PE of 30, and it's because the OAR is a success that will make the PE a lot higher. But yeah, the price targets. On the bear case, we have an upside of 335% from today's price. The base case has an upside of 706% compared to today's price. And the bull case has an upside of 1,218% of today's price. And this is end of year 2023. So this is 2 years in the future, not in a month, not in 1 year, 2 years. And this, this might look crazy. I have to admit, this might look very crazy. And I have checked, I have done my numbers, and I've asked around. And yeah, the results come in like this. And you know, you might ask yourself, why is there such a high upside to this stock? And the answer, in my opinion, is fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Newlox, they have had many delays. And I understand that some investors question their capability to reach high-scale gold, production of gold. No investment is without risk, including this stock. And when I personally invest, I look for great risk-reward scenarios, just like this one. I believe my operational timeline is realistic. And if Newlox execute according to my timeline, or like very close, then I truly believe this stock will be above like plus 700% by the end of year 2023. The only way I see this stock going further down until end of year 2023 is if Newlox fails on basically every aspect, which is possible, but in my opinion, it's very unlikely, since they have like the people who are working with them, they're good at what they do. They are the right people at the right place. But as always, like, it's a risk. Like, will they be able to execute? That's the main question. If you don't think so, don't invest. If you think so, there is a great upside. Yeah, and that's all I had for today. If you found this video helpful, please like and share, and don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to support my work, you can become a Patreon or donate to the channel. And as a final disclaimer, I want to remind you that I am not a financial advisor. I own shares in this company. You should do your own due diligence, and you should only spend what you can afford to lose. Thank you for watching, and have a good one.